All right, Colin Amos is back in studio from the law offices of Goldberg and Jones. Divorce for Men, 1-800-DIVORCE. Colin, good morning. It's great to see you.
Yeah, it's good to be here.
Yeah, it's great to have you back in. As usual, we got some questions for you that you brought in that you get on the website, so we'll get a chance to touch on those. But also, real quick, for people who don't know you, you work with the law offices of Goldberg and Jones, Divorce for Men. You specialize in helping men. 1-800-DIVORCE is the phone number. And we talked about this. Representation is key for guys who are involved in custody battles. If you're going through a divorce, you need representation. And the great thing is, if they call 1-800-DIVORCE, you'll answer the phone. You will simply get a chance to talk to them, and it's a consultation that's free, so you can point them in the right direction. I think that's a great place for any guy to start if they're in a situation where they need help, because without direction, without representation, you can get yourself in a real pickle. And if they call 1-800-DIVORCE, you'll answer the questions and at least point them in the right direction, which I think is great.
Yeah, most people are a little bit nervous. They're going to call somebody, feel like it's going to be some pressure to come in for a consultation or things like that. But I'm surprised more people don't call, just due to the fact that it's a traumatic life event, going through a divorce or a custody battle, or your finances are on the line. You can call in. I can answer some questions, give you some direction at the very least over the phone at no charge, and it really can help you define what you should do and, importantly, what you shouldn't do.
It's Colin Amos here in studio. All right, we got your questions here. Let's touch on some of these. Looks like some good ones. From Portland, it says, when I went through my divorce, I was in a tough situation and didn't fight anything. My ex-wife defaulted me, and I have limited parenting time with my two children, 9 and 6. In the last 2 years, I've now gotten myself together and want to see my kids more. Am I stuck with this visitation schedule?
That happens a lot because, as you can imagine, going through a divorce situation, there's a lot of forces. It could be you're having problems, whether you got maybe a drug dependency or alcoholism or just depression, or you curl up and say, fine, whatever. And a lot of guys get defaulted because they don't properly protect their interest. And now they got a pretty tough parenting schedule that's limiting their time. So this is classic. And the answer is absolutely you can fix this. Even if there were some limiting factors that did realistically contribute to having limited visitation, those are things that change. The court, you're not banished for life. You know, you can come back in, you can rehabilitate yourself, you can bring modifications that now give you that relationship you should have with your kids. Absolutely. You should at least explore those options because, you know, your kids, they get older, and if you don't put yourself in their life, they'll adapt in other ways, and it'll be harder later. So definitely check out your options for modification. All
right, next question for Colin comes from Beaverton. It says, can I handle my divorce? I have one child, 11, and my wife and I are fairly agreeable. I work and she doesn't. We don't have much money to spend and would rather not spend it on attorneys.
Yeah, that's a very valid question. I mean, people are, especially in this economy, have limited resources, and attorneys do cost money. What I would say to that, similar to our previous discussion, you'd certainly want to at least check with an attorney. Having a good attitude, having an amicable attitude with your spouse does not mean that you know what the hell you're doing when you draft documents or go through this process.
How common is an amicable situation?
More common than you would think. The problem is people said, I want this to be friendly. They call me, hey, everything's worked out. We want to do this friendly. But then they get into the details, and they get this attitude, well, you know, I thought we were going to be friendly, and as long as I get everything I want, we're going to be friendly, right? And so once you get into the details of your visitation schedule that you should have in there, the financial division, it gets a little more tenuous, but people can be amicable. But certainly sit down with somebody. You don't have to hire an attorney. Consult with somebody. Educate yourself as to the details you should be negotiating. Then you can go back to your spouse and say, okay, now I know what we need to accomplish. Let's talk about these things.
All right, from Hillsborough, it says, I have been told I should get a legal separation first and then later get a divorce. Is this true? Does it cost more or less? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, this we hear all the time because people somehow believe that it's a stepping stone. A legal separation is a stepping stone to a divorce. And what I tell people is you're just going to pay me twice for the same transaction. Legal separation is another process. It's almost the same as a divorce. Yet at the end of the day, you are now legally separate. You're not divorced, and you now have to go through a process to convert that legal separation or unlimited separation to a divorce proceeding. So it's there for very limited purposes, mainly for people who have religious beliefs that don't allow them to get divorced, or maybe there's health insurance that they can maintain coverage. But it's just as expensive, if not more.
All right, from Vancouver, it's Colin Amos in studio from the law offices of Goldberg and Jones. Divorce for Men, 1-800-DIVORCE. From the Couve, it says, my friend told me that since Washington is a community property state, that once I got married, all of my property became joint. I am concerned because this is my second marriage. We've only been married for 2 years. I have a house that I have owned for 15 years in just my name and a pension that I've had for 22 years. Please give me some good news.
Yeah, I think this stems from the old Eddie Murphy's Delirious routine. I don't know if you guys remember that. I'm old, but that was
one of the funniest cassette tapes I've ever listened to in my life,
exactly.
to be honest.
It was when cassettes came out.
I had to fart to make my own bubbles.
That's right. And so when he did that half, you get married and it's half, and that's not the way it is. In Oregon or Washington, basically they're separate property, and this guy had a house prior to getting married. You can maintain the separate nature of that. It certainly depends on what you do with it when you're married, but a short-term marriage, it's unlikely that any commingling has occurred to the house. He didn't put her name on it. And then certainly pensions, retirement plans, those are presumed to be separate. So the period of time that you're married, this 2 or 3 years, that's joint, that's community, but that prior time is not. So the good news for this gentleman is, you should be safe, but again, make sure you protect it by doing the right things.
All right, here's an interesting question from Portland. It says, my wife and I have been married for 6 months, and we do not get along. Can I get an annulment? And what is the difference between an annulment and a divorce?
Yeah, a lot of people would like to do that, just reverse the clock and say, we're no longer married, throw some salt over their shoulder. Unfortunately, annulments are, I call it the Britney Spears thing where you get drunk in Vegas. We're going to Vegas next year, but I'm married, so I'm okay. I can't get married again. But they get married overnight. They make a mistake. That's a basis for an annulment, when you're under the influence and then you come back and say, okay, I don't, this was a mistake. But if you don't get an annulment right away, you ratify that, and then you're married, whether it's a bad decision or not, or you weren't legally able to consent to a contract. Very limited circumstances. But 6 months, it's a bad decision. Your divorce should be pretty darn easy.
All right, 503-417-7575. Let's go to the phones. Chris is on hold for Colin. Chris, thanks for the phone call. You're on with Colin Amos from Goldberg Jones. Fire away.
Hey, how's it going, Chad? How's it going, Colin?
Good.
Yeah, appreciate it.
I filed for divorce. It's been about 2 years ago, and she defaulted, but I did the paperwork myself, and I didn't do it correctly. I took off for a little bit, me and son, when we lived in a different state, came back. My question is, can I reopen that, or do I have to start all over? I mean, it cost me like $450 just to file at that time. What kind of predicament am I in?
Well, if you defaulted her, it sounds like you defaulted her but didn't finalize it going through the end of the process. Yeah. So what generally happens in most states is they judicially dismiss your case for just not showing up. Eventually, if there's no activity, they'll say, hey, where are you guys? And if you're not there, they'll dismiss your case. So it sounds like that may have happened. If you still have an open case, which you want to check with the court, you can then conclude the default process and get your final orders.
All right, there you go. Thanks for the phone call, Chris. Appreciate that. Hey, Jason, what do you think? Bobby Petrino, 1-800-DIVORCE.
Well, he's going to need a lot of help.
Yeah, the former head coach at the University of Arkansas will be calling your office soon. 1-800-DIVORCE, Bobby Petrino.
There's some more news coming out about that right now. The girl, Jessica Durrell, her fiance, the swim coach at Arkansas, he's out now as well. They're not saying if he resigned, if he was forced out, or what the situation is with him, but he's no longer the swim coach at Arkansas.
That's a big mess. Colin Amos from Goldberg Jones, 1-800-DIVORCE. If you call, he'll give you a free consultation and point you in the right direction. Make sure you represent or you get proper representation. Colin, always great to have you in studio.
Thanks.